I've been toiling, studying to make the ultimate Taylor Swift Matty Healy video, and I have gone to the ancient stone tablets, gazed upon the dead Swift scrolls, made pilgrimage to the ziggurats of BuzzFeed and Teen Vogue to investigate a relationship so catastrophic it nearly made Taylor Swift fans reconsider their allegiance. A relationship and a drama that moved mountains, toppled empires, parted the seas, and allowed the mantle to swallow islands. A girl boss's plight, Apocalypse Now, Taylor's version, The Day Before Tomorrow, 10-minute edition, a Boy Toys rap sheet the length of a Tolstoy novel, a controversy that shook the faith of devout Swifties internationally whose daily prayers at their Nashville-facing shrines were interrupted by the most ghoulish of fates. Two celebrity gods walking among men, torn apart by the Herculean feats of cancel culture, controversies, podcast horrors, white feminism, fake activists, potential fascist salutes, Islamophobia, age gaps, kissing fans, but enough ado. Let's get into it. Also, flash warning until the song is over, so if you're epileptic, close your eyes in 3, 2, 1.
Baby pop stars, baby pop stars, baby pop stars, baby pop stars,
Hey girlies, welcome back to Plato's Allegory of the Cave. I'm real. How are y'all doing today? You know, I'm feeling liberated. I just heard about first wave feminism, and boy am I excited to be included by that diverse roster. Susan B. Anthony, all due respect, you look a bit like an arthritic pit bull in your images, but I'm sure you're gonna tell me all about all the beautiful things you'll do for trans women of color. I'm just kidding, of course. I'm on seventh wave feminism, where we advocate for the literacy of female spiders and metrosexual boys. Today we have a delicious topic to get into, a 3-course meal of gossip, drama, fame, intrigue, murder mystery, whodunit, and Swift justice. And Healy justice, as well. That's right, folks, we're talking about the aftermath and the content of the brief media frenzy surrounding the relationship of pop darling Taylor Swift and pop artist Matty Healy. Two juggernauts of relevance, fame, realness in a world where everyone's fake, straightness in a world where everyone's gay. Even me, one of those straighter people you know, I'm sure. Right, little gay boy? Now, this video is not just a recap of the events. In fact, I'll lay out the structure for you. Pre-K toddlers. First, we're going to talk about Matty Healy, his public persona, his controversies. Then we'll do Taylor, her relationship to fame, her controversies. Then we'll talk about the relationship. We'll cite studies about fame and celebrity. We'll deeply examine our own relationships to these cultural forces. And then we have nap time and then snacks. Robbie's mom brought cheese sticks, and if you're lactose intolerant, I don't know, buckle up, start producing the lactase enzyme. Fame these days, it's a real rat race in the sense that everybody participating wants the cheese and is a test subject for weight loss drugs that the FDA deemed technically insecticides. You know, it's a tale as old as time. Fame corrupts, and everybody wants to be famous, except for the monkeys at the zoo, the only time you're ever going to go in your adult life. Gotta be real, I've been to the zoo twice recently, and I'm starting to get frustrated about those exhibits. I'm not playing Where's Waldo, I'm not playing I Spy. I came here to see a subjugated class of species do tricks for my entertainment. The fact that you've dressed none of these orangutans in tuxedos is already unacceptable. Need I mention that 0 of them are doing magic tricks for me. You fucking walk up to a zoo enclosure and you need the James Webb to spot these critters. Here's an idea, how about you at least let us knock on the glass so they get mad and try to attack us? But no, we can't even have that. I'm trying to have a good time, but your employees are sleeping in their remote cave 4 acres from the sightline you meticulously set up. No other job is allowed to do that. I don't walk into an H&M and play hide and seek with the clothes. Mostly because I don't walk into H&M at all. I sprint in with a suicide vest. And when I detonate the explosive... Alright, okay. Matty Healy, Taylor Swift. I experience a degree of shame making this video because Tay-Tay Swift and Matty Ratty Healy were the hottest celebrity couple like 4 months ago when I was too depressed to upload to YouTube, so totally missed the window on this blazing controversy. So, I don't know, hopefully you guys like cold leftovers. This video is the equivalent of glass Tupperware full of quinoa. It really was 4 months ago they dated. It was in June of 1776, it looks like. Wait, damn, I was reading the Declaration of Independence again. How did that get in here? Really though, I do feel quite late on this. What's my next video on? The Nixon administration? The advent of agriculture? So of course I'm going to do a roast of Matty Healy, but I'm going to split it into 2 parts, one at the beginning of the section and one at the end, because there's just too much content to get through. Matty Healy, pop's rugged bad boy, and by rugged I mean rugged. Look at his face, it's evocative of pre-distressed jeans. So weathered look from a different era. This type of face usually belongs on an impoverished wig maker in a period piece. I'm pretty sure this is an extra from Feeble Goes West, a movie that stars mice. And people say he looks like a rat, so Sorry about that one, guys. Can't ask me to elaborate on this one, but he always looks like he's wearing his dad's clothes. He could get Giorgio Armani to tailor a suit specifically for him, and I'd be like, oh, nice, Men's Warehouse, spring '03, right? Sorry for sweating right now so much. It's 70 degrees in October in Seattle. So if you want me to not sweat, I mean, look up the CEO of BP and, I don't know, oh, but Matty Healy's so hot, he's so hot. Yeah, maybe if you've never seen an Urban Outfitters catalog. He is hot, though, in the way that a kind-eyed kangaroo is hot. I would love to go on a safari and view him from a safe distance in a beige Jeep Wrangler. I swear I saw this exact guy outside a record store chewing nicotine gum and holding an adult coloring book that's 85% mandalas and the other 15% is Zen tangles. Guys like this still exist in Seattle, but they're an endangered species. Scientists start documenting the population by putting air tags on Arctic monkeys' vinyls. All right, roast done. Matthew Edward Trojan Healy, a man whose two middle names I just made up. Matty Healy is an English pop musician most well known for being the frontman of the 1975, which is a massive band. He's something of a character, known for his brash demeanor, progressive politics, and performance art. But what Matty Healy is really known for right now is his controversies, which is to say, on the internet, people hate his ass. So when he and Taylor Swift started dating, people started scouring the internet looking for misdeeds and wrongdoings, and boy, did they find them. This guy is Diamond One at saying stupid shit in front of lots of people. So you and me need to understand why people have such a problem with Matty Healy, the true stuff and the not so true stuff, which means we need to talk about... So the first thing we have to talk about is Matty Healy's appearance on this podcast, The Adam Friedland Show, and this is complicated. So first you need to know why Matty is there, and second you need to understand what The Adam Friedland Show is, because I don't think a lot of people who talk about it properly understand the constituent parts that make up the whole of this controversy. So back in 2020, Matty Healy posted a tweet in support of Black Lives Matter, and he linked a 1975 song to illustrate what he felt were his thoughts on the issue. Unfortunately, this ended up seeming like he was using the George Floyd tragedy to promote his music, and people were not charitable about this interpretation. He deactivated his Twitter account and began the slow heel turn that has brought him to his current persona, a post-woke rock star switching unpredictably between tenderness and trollishness. He stayed on Instagram, where he constantly made fun of both himself and the fans who seemed obsessed with his morality. He likened his music to a YouTube video titled Sound Effect, Grown Man Crying Like a Little Baby. When a fan messaged him to ask why he followed the Kenosha shooters Kyle Rittenhouse and the self-declared misogynist Andrew Tate on the platform, he posted the message along with a reply: "We are starting a band." Off topic, I do not want to heap praise on the guy, but that's a banger response. I laughed out loud when I heard that. However, that being said, Kyle Rittenhouse and Andrew Tate already have duo music under the names Tom MacDonald and Adam Calhoun, and unfortunately there is nothing homoerotic about this content. Now, Healy wasn't fully uncontroversial before this, but now he's fully a troublemaker, perhaps a member of the quote-unquote dirtbag left, which Wikipedia defines as: the dirtbag left is a style of left-wing politics that eschews civility to convey a left-wing populist and anti-capitalist message using vulgarity. It is most closely associated with American left-wing media that emerged in the mid-2010s, such as the podcast Chapo Trap House. Chapo Trap House being another left-winger podcast. Wikipedia lists related acts of Chapo Trap House, among which is Cumtown, another quote-unquote dirtbag left-associated pod. From the New York Times article, the Pied Pipers of the dirtbag left want to lead everyone to Bernie Sanders. The fivesome of Chapo Trap House are not the only bards of the new American left. There is Red Scare and another whose name cannot be printed, but they have led the way for a movement that generates millions of dollars a year. Cumtown ran from 2016 to 2022 and was generally an irreverent, edgy comedy podcast hosted by Nick Mullen, Stavros Halkias, whom you might recognize from his stand-up crowd work on TikTok and YouTube, and Adam Friedland, who with Nick Mullen in 2022 formed the Adam Friedland Show. Red Scare podcast, which was also mentioned there, I don't think is left-wing at all, and it's trash, and I hate it, and it sucks, and it blows. And we don't need to talk about it because fucking hell, what a can of worms that is. Apparently, Matty Healy has also supported them, and I don't care to talk about that either. Don't support Red Scare podcast. The Adam Friedland Show is technically hosted by people with left-wing progressive politics, but they are very edgy and crude. They're provocateurs, they offend, and that's part of their brand. And that's important to know, that the front-facing ideology of the podcast is not conservative. It's just crass, slurs, racial humor, misogynistic humor. Ostensibly ironic, but nonetheless not in great taste, and that's part of the appeal. That's on purpose. You can't look at the fans of this show and say, how dare you listen to something like this, it's so messed up, because that's kind of why they like it. So with the context of this podcast out of the way, Matty Healy goes on this show and says some less than favorable things. First of all, he and the hosts riff on the appearance and ethnicity of Ice Spice. In January, Healy mocked Ice Spice's ethnicity with comics Nick Mullen and Friedland. He called the rapper, who is Nigerian and Dominican, an Inuit Spice Girl and a chubby Chinese lady. Healy also imitated Hawaiian and Chinese accents. Now, to listeners of the podcast, this reads as classic, joking at the expense of other people and demographics, but to outside listeners, Yeah, this kind of sounds like a racist tirade. Two white men in a podcast doing offensive accents and making gross jokes about an up-and-coming woman of color. Not a great look. That being said, most podcasts with two white men simply use that as every episode description on Spotify, so they weren't really breaking the mold. White guys being racist and misogynistic? Yeah, I'll believe that when birds fly, which, as we know, is every day that they're able to get their concerted prescription. Otherwise, they just struggle with getting out of bed. Now, according to Ice Spice, my recently wedded wife, confidant, boss, caretaker, and mother of my two beautiful Yamaha HS7 studio monitors, she was confused by these comments, but Healy apologized many times, and the two have since made up. The whole situation was extra mean, though, because Ice Spice had said publicly that she was a fan of the 1975, and there goes the frontman shitting on her for her looks and ethnicity, so already in some hot water, but then we get into the worst thing he could have possibly said. He referenced, being caught watching racist torture adult content, and he referred to the women in the videos being brutalized, and he referenced the specific website, and I looked it up, and it's bad, guys. It's not like normal. It's like really racist. It's like really racist. Hi, and welcome back to Stats with Ro. Today we're going to be going over a beautiful new form of statistical analysis, a chart I've made called the Freak Mode chart. Now, the Freak Mode chart is very simple. Here on the y-axis, we have horny mind rot, which is just about how horned up you are. And on the x-axis, we have nightmare level, which is just how bad that thing you're watching is. Now, it's important to take note of this line that goes up through the middle. That's called the slime meridian, and that's what's going to let you know whether you're in the habitable zone or the wasteland. In the top left, we have the Bob Ross zone. You might be incredibly horny, but you're not doing much about it. The nightmare level is so low, this is a video of a gumball machine at a supermarket. Now let's look at the bottom right here. You can see that the nightmare measure is all the way up to the right, and that the horny mind rot is very low. That means you're just doing this for fun, and we have to kill you now. I'm sorry, if you find yourself in this circle, the US military is going to come and find you, and they're going to torture you with lasers originally made during the Cold War to test on Soviet dogs. Now, what Matty Healy describes in this clip is dangerously close to the bottom right quadrant. It's what we in the business like to call, that's racist. That's just racist. It's just racist. Here in the biz, we have a saying, nothing wrong with kink, you know, do what you want. But that's just racist. Matty Healy is unfortunately in the Fire Lord Ozai Boundless Evil region. If you're a Healy fan and this is a lot to digest, I understand you might be going through some intense feelings right now. I have some suggestions on how to cope. Number 1, go on a walk, look at ducks in the park, and skip some rocks. Number 2, purchase a journal and write these thoughts out. Number 3, go to betterhelp.com and launch a DDoS attack on their servers. And number 4, I'm out of ideas. This has been Stats with Ro. So the site is called, Jesus, it's gross, Ghetto Gaggers, and here's a quote from a little Medium article by some guy, I guess, that I thought summed it up quite well. Some sites add intense racist humiliation by intentionally using numerous insults and props to trigger further degradation. The theme of the Ghetto Gaggers films, for example, is white men humiliating and sexually dominating black women. Physical violence coupled with jokes about poverty, welfare, slavery, putting nooses on women, etc. I cannot express to you enough how what they're saying about this website makes me think that they actually have watched this stuff, and how ethically bad this stuff that they might have watched has to be. Abuse porn sites are not shy about how they prey on the most naive and inexperienced of porn performers. The texts on Ghetto Gaggers and other websites describe how they trick 18-year-olds and other women who mostly have never been in a porn film and clearly have been manipulated in some way and totally unprepared for what they are about to face. Of course, this is all densely linked to anti-blackness, black fetishization and adult content, objectification and brutalization of black people, and it is to be taken incredibly seriously. To me, this literally is not funny at all and could actually be indicative of some sort of anti-blackness or racism subconsciously, maybe internalized. That's just what I'm forced to believe. I joke about serious things, sure, but I don't know, this is next level. It's just too gross, it's too abhorrent for me to see anything funny or jovial about it, and this is the most abhorrent thing that Matty Healy has ever said, to me at least. Like, dude, I could barely scroll on the website. It's not an okay place. While to some degree women of all colors are reduced to sexual commodities by a patriarchal system, black women are subjected to the collective historical consequences based on the intersectionality of race, class, and gender that all tie into a continued sexual debasement. It is still an effort of the white supremacist patriarchal agenda to control and exploit the bodies of black women. Reflecting on her years as a youth, activist and anthropologist Irma McLaren says, "From outside my community, my body was racialized in pernicious ways." She articulates that management of the black female body was at the core of my identity. McLaren, 2001. Racial fetishization is a practice of reproductive and sexual management that began before the slave era and has been reproduced in policy and societal norms throughout all of American history. This paper is a good read. It's super heavy, the heaviest possible thing, but I don't think it would be responsible for me to address Healy's reference to this content and not actually delve into the implications, the history, and the gravity of the legacy of slavery. At this point, I think I've hammered my point home, and I'd like to direct you to Think Peace Tribe's video if you'd like the perspective of a black person on this controversy. I am ultimately an outsider with no lived experience of these social forces, so you and I will be moving on. He asked me to describe the video as one that uses the Taylor Swift and Matty Healy situation as a bouncing off / reference point to explain how white feminism not only pushes anti-blackness, but also hurts black people, and more specifically black women, through what are supposed to be progressive movements that are supposed to advocate for all women, but end up falling short of it. All this being said, do not take my words on this specific case to be shaming sex workers. I'm also not here to shame you for watching adult content. God knows. I have. That's a weird thing to share with a large audience. Okay, you can do what you want, of course. Just be very skeptical, look into what you're watching. If you can, just pay the people for the content themselves. There are huge systemic ethics problems in the industry, and if you're engaging with it, you have to account with those. It's not an argument, you just have to. But yeah, so why the fuck would you say that ever? Why would you ever bring that up on an interview that's going to be published? First of all, unbelievable to be on a podcast talking about the porn you watch on our great nation's pastime, the Animorphs evolution of iHeartRadio. Podcasts replaced baseball and apple pie a decade ago for, Patagonia jacket owners. That's like the platform for the DNC, just middle-aged social democrats with graphs. 85% of podcasts are just Malcolm Gladwell and Ira Glass pulling down their reading glasses to examine charts. If you're going to share the type of stuff you watch, I'd say limit it to the inner circle. Your own personal Freemasons should be the only people that get to hold that sacred knowledge. The rest of us are content never knowing it. I'd say it's hard to judge a person's character by the stuff they say on a podcast, but I think I could draw the line in my head, at least, at what's wrong. And the line is, if my cousin said this to me at a family gathering, what's the damage? Yeah, if my cousin says one unsolicited thing about pornography, where are we going from here? What, are we going to trade recipes? Is this the New York Times cooking section comments? No, let's just stick to the classics. Let's stick to what's already gone platinum. Let's talk about Magic the Gathering and how there are 6 people in the family who are gay and nobody is saying anything. Now, Healy said he was baiting a little bit from his New Yorker profile. I asked him about the podcast. He'd been doing so much promo, he told me that he wanted to do something that felt more like simply talking with his friends. But of course, he had done this all in public, on mic. Had he baited his fans on purpose? A little bit, he said, but it doesn't actually matter. Nobody is sitting there at night slumped at their computer and their boyfriend comes over and goes, "What's wrong, darling?" And they go, "It's just this thing with Matty Healy." It doesn't happen. I don't know, I'm just not convinced. If you're constantly in this flux between irony, public performance, characters, and whatnot, it's not terribly convincing to say that you were serious or joking about any given statements. It's just kind of lackluster. Now I want to talk about quality versus quantity, which is to say that detractors of Matty Healy and Taylor Swift's relationship dug up lots of stuff about Healy, including a possible NAZI salute he does on stage when he says, "Thank you, Kanye, very cool," and the lyrics of one of his songs. It might be a normal salute, one that starts at your forehead, but it totally could be exaggerated to indicate a connection to Kanye's fascist leanings. In that case, though, it isn't really on the same level as the stuff he said about Ice Spice, women of color, pornography. It's in poor taste, but ultimately satirical and critical of fascism, which isn't equivalent to the openly distasteful things he said in other contexts. That's not to say that this is a cool and okay thing to do and shouldn't be checked, but it's not like it's the same as the other stuff. And I could go on about the controversies. We could bring up how Matty Healy kissed fans on stage, and then he started asking for ID after a while of doing it, indicating that he may have accidentally kissed minors on stage. Not the most responsible. We could bring up his record of ignorance in relation to Islamophobia, although considering how old a lot of those tweets are, that might not be a productive conversation. You could talk about the possible age gap with Healy's girlfriend back in 2013, who he might have started dating when she was 17 and he was 23, 24, although with my research I couldn't tell if that was the case. It seemed like it might have been, but nobody was really bugged about it other than this one Mary Sue article that felt like it wasn't in good faith and possibly contained errors. See, there's lots of stuff on Matty Healy, but a lot of it is kind of blurry. It's not high-quality evidence of wrongdoing, it's just more noise added to the image that we're mistaking for sharpness. My point is that, when the masses gather negative press on a celebrity to tarnish their image, it isn't about the potency of individual claims, but the quantity of bad vibes they can cultivate. The longer the list, the more damning the information. This incentivizes a deep dive into decade-old tweets, controversies, age gaps, discourse over aspects of a performance being taken very seriously. Healy had a gag in his live show where he would start some sort of controversial sentence and then be cut off by his band. In the previously mentioned Mary Sue article, they took this gag literally and inferred that he was really going to launch into a racist rant. I'm not saying we owe Matty Healy infinite get-out-of-jail-free cards or that we must be charitable to him, but we don't need to form a cumulative midden of possibly incriminating evidence. We gain little from aggregating further information. If you feel that his actions are unacceptable, you're allowed to feel that way without investigating a death by 1,000 cuts. In the end, you are the captain of your own destiny. You decide what is unacceptable for yourself. Healy has crossed that line for me. I think his comments on the Adam Friedland show are disreputable and revolting, and that's where my line is. You just need to decide where the line sits for you on your own time. All right, let's close out the Matty Healy roast we started at the beginning of this section. He looks as though he's explored polyamory 1 or 2 times, but came to the conclusion that only he is allowed to wear loose-fitting jackets, so he couldn't date bisexual women. I don't really get that one either, but I'm keeping it in. You know the portrait of Dorian Gray? How do I explain this? He looks like somebody else made the deal, ate cigarettes and tar for 35 years, and then he's the portrait. He literally looks exactly like, what's his name? He's married to... No, don't look it up. Don't look it up. I know it. Oh, don't look it up. It was in Independent... Never mind. I don't remember. Papa, may I have some porridge typeface? The wistful, sorrowed eyes of a Dead Poet Society understudy. Hey, Maddie, the Outsiders called. They want their rebellious Greaser 2 costume back. No, yes. No, I remember. It's the IRS. No, I don't have the money. Give me a second. Healy once said he's become suspicious of wokeism, and I think he should have done that earlier. It looks like he hasn't slept since the first Vampire Weekend album drop. If you look in the mirror and say pre-order cassette 3 times, he might appear behind you. Next time you're at a house show, check the opener's kick drum. Maddie might be hiding there. On today's episode of Born Too Late to Be Progressive, Too Early to Be Conservative, it's actually fucked up. If you play his songs backwards, they're a lot worse than they are forwards, so stick to forwards, I guess. Taylor Allison Swift, a woman whose middle name I didn't just make up. Middle America's prodigal daughter, the Jimmy Carter to Lana Del Rey's Ronald Reagan. To her fans, she can do no wrong. To her haters, she can do no right. To the chronically ill, she's of little interest because they're too busy trying to get second opinions from male doctors. Spoiler alert, apparently you're hysterical and you made up your symptoms to get attention because, I don't know, you're on your period? You're not on your period? I don't know, we've never seen this before. You guys like the hairstyle? Usually to get a pony this high, you gotta give him K. Taylor Swift is a pop, folk, country powerhouse, one of the American pop stars at the moment, and she is a capital A American. She's white, she's blonde, she has blue eyes. This woman, in many different forms, is the NIMBY on your neighborhood's homeowners association. To me, though, she's just a friend. My first love and the first woman I ever met. Taylor, if you're watching this, can you please re-explain the Nalaxite Maoist insurgency to me? Your understanding of geopolitics is far more robust than mine. Across her nearly 2-decade career, Taylor Swift has made a name for herself as one of the great pop writers and singers of our time, and one of the most popular. She's got over 100 million monthly listeners on Spotify, her album drops register on the Richter scale, her Eras tour forms nomadic settlements wherever she goes, and whenever she tweets, white people everywhere begin to walk with a certain pep in their step, like they just got post-ironic New Balances. Swift's career, though, isn't just measured by her success, but by her detractors, her flops, her reputation as teen girl trash, and her ongoing battle with misogyny in the public eye. See, Swift, now more than ever, doesn't just stand for herself, she stands for women, for young girls, for people everywhere that have been written off because of their age or gender. And that, to me at least, is a near inarguable positive of her impact. Of course, we can weigh the effect of late capitalist girl bossification against her, but I think that her social impact for young women everywhere goes far beyond that. She rose to prominence as a singer-songwriter at a very young age. She began writing professionally at 14, releasing her first album at 15. She wrote and sung about the thoughts of day-to-day problems of a young woman because she was one. This, of course, garnered massive amounts of unacceptable misogynistic backlash. People did, and still do, view her as immature, untalented, and ditzy. Immature, untalented, and ditzy? That's what they wrote on my first audition tape for SNL before Lorne Michaels tried to drown me by holding me upside down in the Hudson River. Hey, in New York, that's called a Sicilian baptism. named for famous drowner Cecilia Baptist, whose water ghost, or Guaisin, still haunts the Cat's Deli, removing the mayonnaise from their turkey clubs. Here's back out to play. We're not fucking around anymore. But even after being pigeonholed as a certain type of person, Taylor pushed past that reputation, and she's emerged victorious, one of the most reputable and loved stars in the world. In the past few years, she's taken it upon herself to reclaim the rights to her previously released music by re-releasing new versions of her albums with the suffix Taylor's version. This is a multifunctional decision that I think really well illustrates Taylor's proficiency as a celebrity, as a public figure, as a brand, and kind of as a company. It's a decision that allows her to make a statement on her steadfast dedication to her craft, to remind fans of the music that they first fell in love with, to fight back against the executives and studios who have taken her work, and to turn a large profit on re-releases of these albums. On a public platform, Swift represents the tenacity and resilience of women. Well, white women. She represents white womanhood at large, and there are many overlaps, of course, between her experience of white womanhood and her privilege, and the way her and her fans are known to act. Some people have even accused Swift of weaponizing her plight to rile up her fan base against detractors, or even people who make bog-standard jokes about her dating history. They've pointed to her cultural appropriation, seemingly shallow endorsement of progressive cultural issues, blatant excess carbon emissions, and most recently, her relationship with Matty Healy. While it is important to recognize the challenges Swift has endured under our patriarchal system, her experiences still vastly differ from those of women of color. Her recent actions, as well as attempts at socially conscious songwriting, like the song The Man, dismiss the nuances of other marginalized communities and fail to acknowledge the struggles and complexities we face. While she might be a fierce advocate for her own rights, Swift will continue to be complacent when women of color are impacted, exemplifying her narrow view of feminism. Though she does have a right to be concerned about the perception of her romantic relationships, a quick Google search reveals the innumerable articles and tweets about her romantic past, everything from rankings of her breakup songs to a ranking of how much Taylor's fans loved her former relationships. It is of course true that Taylor here is being held to a higher standard than her fellow pop stars, but kind of for good reason. Taylor's public image is heightened by her ostensible support of these progressive issues. If she's an insincere mouthpiece, she's lying to us. Insincere mouthpiece? Sounds like the name of something. Maybe a doubtful oral sesh? Passive-aggressive blowjob, I don't... Give me a second here. Oh. Okay. Anyways, Taylor's complicated relationship with the public is densely tied up in the public's conceptions of her personal, complicated relationships. To quote Taylor Swift herself, "We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal." Fuck, that's the Declaration of Independence again. How did that get in here? Sorry, to quote Taylor Swift herself, "Relationships are like traffic lights, and I just have this theory that I can only exist in a relationship if it's a green light." So, not sure what that means. You know, relationships are like a red light. If you're a few Coors Lights in, they're just holding you back from your true potential. 130 miles per hour in a Hyundai Sonata with a woman who isn't your wife. I'm kidding, guys. Don't drink and drive, okay? It's illegal. Write to your senator about legalizing it, and then we can all get back to doing it like we want to. Anywho, public, Taylor, relationships, blah, blah, blah. I just won't stop talking. Many people talk about Taylor's relationships, interactions, like we have a personal understanding of her as a human being. And aside from being parasocial, this is, just let me read the quote. "From being a celebrity, alienation, integration, and the uncanny, Taylor Swift speaks openly about the close connection between her public and private life, exemplified by the incident at the MTV Awards in 2009, in which Kanye West interrupted proceedings to publicly denounce Swift for winning the Best Female Video Award. It was not only Swift's public persona that was affected by this humiliation. She recalls her deep personal anguish and the way in which the event caused her to question who she really wanted to be. This kind of personal experience would not be possible if the celebrity's public and private selves were sharply split and disconnected. As such, the way in which the private self seems to be affected by the experiences of the public persona highlights the important ways in which these two selves are connected. The experience of fame and the divide between a celebrity's private and public selves seem to involve a paradoxical feeling of both disconnection and connection, disassociation and association, alienation and belonging. The celebrity experience is something defined by disparate highs and lows, particularly those of deification and dehumanization, either being treated as above the average person or an object who exists as a conglomeration of images. These two experiences are intimately connected, though, and when we speak about Taylor Swift, hypothesize or belabor over her personal love life, we are necessarily fusing these two separate people, Taylor the human and Taylor the artist, and making them one, so critique may apply to both. Most people understand that Swift the artist is a brand, a market-tested PR campaign unwilling to act recklessly or endorse radical political ideas. Most people also understand that Swift the person is completely unknown to us, that her personal actions, thoughts, and beliefs are so heavily curated to maintain a public presence that we can't truly know what she thinks. Nonetheless, when we speak about Taylor or any other celebrity, we must implicitly accept that we're gonna contradict ourselves. We're speaking on a figure that doesn't truly exist. In the cultural consciousness, Taylor Swift is an ever-shifting series of headlines, performances, pull quotes, and interviews. So criticizing Taylor Swift as a person is not really possible. Same with Healy, because we are dealing with incomplete data. Rather, we're criticizing the public actions of a person-brand hybrid who carries cultural power. I find the arguments about Swift endorsing certain political movements and not carrying through in support to be of particular interest in this case. When it comes to politics and activism, Swift's true beliefs have always been opaque. The star exceeds at always being 1 foot in and 1 foot out, saying just enough to support a cause and receive praise for it, but never enough to follow through on any of them. In 2017, she showed support for the Women's March, but did not actually attend. In 2019, she became an LGBTQ+ ally, releasing the anti-homophobe single You Need to Calm Down, donating to queer-led organizations, and inviting drag artists on stage, but has since remained quiet on the issue, which is especially vital now that a slew of anti-trans and anti-gay laws are sweeping through the country. In 2020, she spoke out against statues in Tennessee that depict Confederate generals and Ku Klux Klan members, and in support of justice for George Floyd. And yet she is supposedly dating an unapologetic racist. While it's unrealistic to expect celebrities to speak up about every issue, it is reasonable and wise to hold them to account for the things they do say, and Swift's pseudo-activist track record certainly raises a few questions. See, right there, it's like, I like all of that, and I agree with it, but we feel like we're criticizing Swift right there, and we kind of are, but mostly we are criticizing a heavily bureaucratic system of checks and balances that results in a celebrity that we see. We might say, well, if Taylor believes these things, she'd really stand up for them, but we don't know what she believes. We can make educated guesses, but we cannot be certain. I believe that two things are true at once here, that Taylor embodies a harmful brand of white feminism, and that she is also held to too high of a standard for political activism compared to other celebrities. But she's held to that standard because of her fan base and her lukewarm progressive image, not because we know that she's actually a progressive who's betraying her beliefs. And I'm not saying that Taylor Swift shouldn't support trans people or speak out against anti-blackness or stop flying her private jet. Of course she should do these things. People generally should support trans people, should speak out against anti-blackness, police violence, should refrain from using their personal private jet 6 zillion times a year. You know, that one's a real problem for me. I already have to remind myself that I can just walk to the grocery store. I just hop on the PJ every time. You know, I've been on a private jet one time. It's true. It's one that was paid for by a rich person I didn't know, and it was gonna take off and land whether or not I was on it. And I can confidently say, nobody in the world needs that shit. I was on it for 40 minutes, and the whole time it was like a glorified party trick. What if you could have a free mini bag of Cheez-Its and your own plane? Sorry, the former interests me far more. You know, maybe a hot take, but I am personally fine with Taylor Swift not being a woke communist and publicly identifying as a milquetoast liberal. I feel like if Taylor Swift posted infographics about how to use Latinx neopronouns, it would be like stolen valor. Like, leave that to us. That's our thing. By the way, infographics, they're still happening. People think they ended? No. There's all, as all of us sleep every night, then wake up and eat our overnight oats and gruel, there's a whole demographic of people that just learned Canvas is free and are desperate to clue us in about AAVE. I think that Taylor Swift's political position can oscillate between being Rosie the Riveter for Halloween and apologizing because she just found out that pussy hats are bioessentialist. That's okay with me. I don't need her encouraging me to read Zizek. I have enough white people already telling me to read theory. Also, it would be confusing. It would be confusing if she was too progressive. Communist celebrity is practically an oxymoron. Like, she can just make all this money and do all the same stuff and be a communist? No. When I was researching articles about, like, Taylor Swift and white feminism, I found one, or I think it was like a few, that were like, oh, I'm writing this article as a Swiftie, and we need to address this. And I love that, like, self-confidence. I was drafted as a Swiftie, and now I must serve Taylor, but with a heavy heart, I must admit that she is indeed a white feminist. Honestly, as far as celebrities go, pretty low-stakes fumble on her part. Most white women are probably white liberal feminists, so things could have gone way worse. Kanye West exists. God, just putting that one out there. I like his music enough, but there were real stans who watched him go on Alex Jones that day and say a lot of stuff. That was permanent brain damage, psychic concussions, 400% increase in white dudes with graduation posters in their college dorm room checking into mental health institutions. All in all, Taylor Swift fans, you're eating good. And your standards can't be that high. You lived through the Reputation era. So it's like, just keep trucking. Just one foot in front of the other. I don't know, if you're like me and you're woke enough to criticize Taylor Swift for being a white feminist, maybe it's time for you to disengage from stan culture altogether. This aside is over. Okay, before we wrap this section up, let's get some roasts in here. Taylor looks exactly like a girl whose Instagram story would consist of a fake Lush bath bomb giveaway scam and a boomerang of her watching Booksmart. I mean, come on, you know it's bad when the edgiest she gets is wearing winged black eyeliner and flannels. I mean, what next, a hard cider and a clove cigarette? Scary. It's actually nuts because I feel like I'm coming for myself here. I can barely drink a hard cider. I don't know how she still connects to the average person. She probably has a 24/7 Aeropostale attached to her house. It's like right past the Scrooge McDuck room. It's tough looking at a millennial and knowing that they own ironic onesies and thick-rimmed glasses. Like, it's very obvious to me that How I Met Your Mother was a big part of her life at one point or another, and it just hurts to know that. You know, she's like the human version of a rom-com pastry shop run by a former businessman, whose heart was warmed just a little bit by a woman that he didn't think he'd love. In another universe where she has to shop instead of using her Neuralink mind powers to activate an assistant to shop for her, I know she's made dozens of Aritzia employees check in the back for items that aren't in stock. Do you think she thought she could talk to horses when she was a kid? You know, she's got that vibe. I'm almost done editing, but I just thought of a few more roasts, so here they are. This is the English teacher with an anxiety disorder that put you on to Paramore in the 7th grade. She's the type of high schooler who always had a pizza bagel and a Nature Valley bar for lunch. She has the glow of somebody eating the biohazardous food in a Weight Watchers ad. If you go to an Abercrombie & Fitch on Friday the 13th, when it's a new moon, and at midnight, one of the mannequins will come to life, and it'll look exactly like her. She's the type of person, she's the type of barista. No. She's the type of person to be on barista TikTok and to have a specific opinion on Oatly and Silk almond milk. And she's white. Did you guys know she's actually white? I'm so funny. Next section. So here we've painted two images of celebrities, one being the post-woke rock star whose misbehavior is complicated, connected to almost childlike tantrums and rejections of the status quo, and the other one being the beloved pop star whose actions are broadly inoffensive, but may be subject to disproportionate scrutiny due to her belittled reputation. So now we witness the relationship, which isn't truly to us a relationship, rather, it's a crash test. We have constructed two fake versions of these people based on their actions, public relations, etc., and now we see their relationship and we must form an opinion on it. We have too many preconceived notions to not have thoughts on these two cultural identities clashing. In May of 2023, through various avenues, the world realizes that Matty Healy and Taylor Swift are dating or seeing each other or something, and the internet explodes. People realize Matty and Taylor both mouthed a secret message to the cameras at their concerts at the same time in different places, and they're spotted holding hands, various public sightings after that, recording studios, concerts, Taylor saying that she's the happiest she's ever been, and then 1 month later, they were broken up. Fully. Flash in the pan. Like, damn. And during this time, not only did people freak out, but we got full think pieces from Teen Vogue. Swifties claim their protests are not against Swift's dating choices per se, but against who has the privilege of associating with the mighty Taylor Swift brand. Yet the resulting impression is nonetheless that disillusioned Swifties simply don't like their idol's new boyfriend, and are therefore appropriating the language of social justice, e.g. encouraging Swift to commit to dismantling systems of oppression in an attempt to change her mind. But Healy is not a public servant. The status of Swift's boyfriend is not a public good to be revoked, nor a job from which someone can be justly fired for their sheer unpopularity. Conflating the two reveals the extent to which fans view Swift as a public commodity, whose intimate choices ought to be the subject of collective vetting. What's more, though well-intentioned, the positioning of one woman's romantic life as a broad political issue only serves to harm the credibility of progressive causes with a clearly defined political goal. Now, this is insightful and interesting, but I'd like to push back on the idea that the status of Swift's boyfriend is not a public good to be revoked, because it kind of is, and it kind of was. The way that Taylor the brand's career trajectory has gone, Taylor the person's romantic life, is incredibly important to the way her audience perceives her. I would be willing to bet real money that this breakup was not driven by personal disagreements, rather by a calculated effort to keep Taylor in good standing with the public. Healy's brand and Swift's brand just don't mesh. This relationship seems like it wasn't ended by irreconcilable differences in humanity, but by irreconcilable differences in marketability. From that perspective, the position of her partner is almost a political one, an electable socialite that must slot in comfortably, be adored by fans, and keep backlash below a certain threshold. I'm not saying it's impossible that they chose to go their own ways, but the way this played out makes it look like the public is missing a piece of the puzzle, a hole that could easily be filled by a strategic breakup to quell adverse reactions. Coming forward further to contemporary times, in media societies such as the ones we live in today, which are highly digitalized, panopticism can be seen to work in a slightly different way. Yes, we are under constant scrutiny of the gaze, but it isn't a singular gaze upon many, but rather many innumerable gazes. So instead of the one-to-many scenario of the Panopticon, it's a reverse Panopticon of many to one, and going deeper still, of many to many. Bentham's idea of the Panopticon was for inspection. He equated the concept of inspection with control. He who inspects has control. That idea of inspection still exists in a reverse Panopticon, though it is now through many gazes. But the idea of control is different. Classic Panopticon, but inverted, where the masses who are usually powerless are afforded, finally, the luxury of input and agency. Now, the Panopticon was originally conceptualized by Jeremy Bentham and famously expanded upon by Foucault as a sort of thought experiment on power, carceral punishment, surveillance, and the small ruling class wielding control over the few through invisible ephemeral power. We have no such privilege. We are, as individuals, mimetic of the whole, torrential waves thrust into each other, generating volatile momenta, a heaving mass of cultural critique, pushing against each other, breathlessly attempting to form rationale and cohesion to justify our unmanageable swells and breaks. To the cultural project of celebrity, we are the lesser masses. No wealth, no influence, no voice without each other. We have nowhere near the strength of Swift, but if we make enough noise, we can still be a problem. Fame is not a democracy, but it can respond, invariably, to revolt. Though I hesitate to suggest that an audience can function as effectively as the Panopticon is meant to, past the invisible power we exercise through our gaze, we lack the systemic powers necessary to discipline and punish. From Being a Celebrity, a Phenomenology on Fame. The set of textual themes indicates that although fame is experienced as providing wealth, access to a privileged world, gratification, and symbolic immortality, it also robs the celebrity of privacy, leads to isolation, engenders mistrust of others, introduces temptations, can lead to creating a character split between the celebrity entity and the private self, and heightens concern about risks to other family members. Perhaps some findings of this study could have the unintended effect of encouraging fame seekers. All research participants claimed that despite its negative elements, fame is worth it after all, and they would not trade it back. The material rewards of fame confirm the celebrity's being in the world such that neither character splitting, isolation, mistrust, nor fame's impact on family members led to celebrity regret over becoming famous. At the heart of the fame experience lies an intrinsic affirmation of individual uniqueness and specialness that spurs those who seek celebrity status. In a way, my conceptualization of the end of Healy's and Swift's relationship is wishful thinking, that we could actually influence the lives of those more powerful than us. It is a power fantasy, unprovable in truth. All that we know is that these two people met, were together, were scolded, and then separated. We can endlessly hypothesize and project our supposedly informed fictions as to the nature of their relationship and its end, but in reality, I know just about as much as you. Nothing at all. These people are strangers. Celebrity is, by nature, participatory. It beckons, requires involvement from droves, attention, approval, derision, apathy, and outside looking in. Celebrity is also by nature exclusionary. It positions itself uniquely as a contemporary bourgeois, a de facto ruling class whose interests and complex personal worlds are both subject to intense scrutiny and vacuous denigration. Young celebutants are no longer discovered or revealed, they are constructed and rolled out. Intricately assembled for the acquiescence and assent of the audience they are advertised to. It seems then that it's no surprise we've seen a generational anxiety formed around the construction of these celebrities, the nepo babies, the industry plants, the desire to understand the anatomy of their fame and relevance to topple their reputability and expose their vulnerabilities. In doing this, the masses of unfamous citizens are able to exercise and reclaim agency in a process of fame that becomes increasingly alien, driven by class interests, bottom lines, and market-tested public relations. The accountability process slots neatly into this analysis, as does the somewhat contentious cancel culture. Celebrities, more than ever maybe, are unstoppable. Many historic figures who we considered to be immensely famous, artists like Van Gogh, were generally less regarded in their times. The tale of the artist, unrecognized in their era, one that tragically and dutifully toiled at works that were never offered respect, is nearly mythologized, perhaps for a feigned angle of humility. To pass on unnoticed, to be unable to court the attention of the masses is a more honorable death, to have one's art be the preservation of life rather than vice versa. Of course, in our lives, it is impossible to prognosticate such things, to predict, as though one was a prophet, the artists who will be appreciated far too late for their well-being. Such is reality, though, and we are left with the celebrity of our times, hulking, wealthy, momentous masses that are thrust upon a collective culture, one defined increasingly by struggle of class, by poverty, by inequity. We flock to celebrities to see them on stage, both as a form of entertainment and a wild form of escapism. A single night where we are able to inhabit the same room, the same stadium, the same arena even, as somewhat of indescribable wealth and reputation. But still our resentment grows. It is, after all, uncontainable. It's at once justified and reviled. It's hating, it's standing, it is a bias, the manifestations of obsession, of longing, of unrequited love and undeserved affluence. To be in love with the celebrity is to be ignored by them, it is to be fed by the hand of a masked face, to gradually harbor indignation, let bitterness come unto you and become you. And so, eventually, the individual and the mass align, the bitterness spreads, the wrongdoings allow a much-needed cultural reckoning to occur. Simultaneously, this cultural reckoning demands accountability and change, but understands the nature of celebrity just might make those things impossible. Still, we grasp at threads of tattered cloth that connect us to the monarchs. It is all the power we have, a manifestation of discontent, and it must be exiled. So we dig up clips, we recontextualize actions, we analyze the artist as though they might be a character in a novel who can be made sense of, who was written not only by themselves, the author of an eponymous act, but by the very audience who turns on them. We reclaim agency by allowing ourselves to influence the narrative and to rewrite who these celebrities are to us, and who they are in secret. We of course know that they are fundamentally unable to understand these beings as anything other than strangers. Their ephemeral interactions with us deprive us of true personal insight. They are subject to dehumanization and deification in equal measure. They would not trade it for the world. So we watch, we engage if we can, with their meteoric rises and downfalls, and we try to make sense of it from the sidelines. We scan interviews and articles and think pieces. We covertly surveil and photograph these transient balls of light, track them through the city, vacation, and home. Every night we, too, return to our homes, surrounded by our little things, our technology, our electronics, keepsakes and trinkets and heirlooms and antiques. We return to a space constructed solely for our living. Often we find ourselves accompanied by our closest ones, our friends, our parents, our siblings, our partners, our strongest tethers to the threads of humanity. We share words of affirmation, soft laughter, warm bodies, heartfelt attachments. We kiss and high-five and wrestle and argue and stare into each other's eyes. We do our best to understand the truly unending eternal world within those close to us, one that we cannot fathom, even as close as we are to these people. At the end of the night, after exercising our most human, most endangered selves, we unlock our phones and forget the innumerable truths we learn day after day. We believe we know people we do not. We believe we connect to distant guests of our personal narratives. We judge and we analyze and we extrapolate from data that does not truly exist. Only after this do we feel like ourselves again. So before I close out this video, I want to say thank you to my friend Tina for helping me research the topic and helping, just like staying on the phone while I wrote and stuff. She was so helpful. Go follow Tina. I'll put her social medias in the description. Hey girlies, thank you so much for watching the video. It's a little late, I know. It was supposed to be out last Friday. I'll have another video out this Friday. Weekly videos, subscribe for weekly content if you want to. Thank you so much to my patrons. If you want to support the work that I do here, if you like the video, if you want to tell me keep doing this, my patrons are the reason that I'm able to keep doing this every month. If I did not have them, I would not be able to pay my bills. And I would like to thank, actually, specifically, today I would like to thank one of my patrons, Liam, who who's making a very, very significant contribution and is the reason that I'm able to eat food this month. So thank you so much, Liam. yeah, I don't know. I'm very, very grateful to you all for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you thought it was funny or insightful or cool or interesting or something. That's really it. I'm gonna keep letting this patron scroll go by. That's all I had to say, though. Take care of yourself, take care of others, be kind to yourself, and be kind to others. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Bye.